thinking, what does a travel CRNA make? What is a travel CRNA? And what goes into that? And how can maybe you do that in the future? So if you want to learn more about that, so definitely keep watching. My name is Christine and welcome to a new video. If it's your first time here and you want to become a CRNA or grow your CRNA career, start out by subscribing and hitting the bell so you don't miss anything. Yes, today is a day that I'm going to talk about travel CRNA salary. What are the benefits? What is a travel CRNA? Well, let's get started because make sure you watch till the end of this video because you don't want to miss anything, because let me tell you right now, travel CRNAs are making a lot of money. And hey, if you want to travel, it's a great opportunity for growth, great opportunity for you to, of course, maybe gain a lot of money in a sense that you can pay off debt or pay off, or save for a house or save money and, also travel and have that benefit of seeing how anesthesia is done differently. And it's definitely a great experience. So a travel CRNA is, for example, an independent contractor. Saying, for example, you're saying to yourself, I want to travel to another state, maybe I want to travel to another facility, or maybe you want to go check out how things are done differently in other places and do a contract. You go ahead and help out. Maybe you want to go to a specific area that, maybe you have family located, or maybe you want to go to a specific area, you want to see how things are done because you think of maybe working there, try to get your foot in the door. Maybe you just want to travel and see how things are done, travel different states, see how things are done differently, as well as maybe enjoy your time that you're there. So there's definitely opportunity to do that. Travel CRNAs can work in, of course, rural versus urban areas, multiple states throughout the country, different facilities. So for example, maybe you want to work in an ambulatory care center. Maybe you want to work specifically in OB, GYN, and maybe just do epidurals and C-sections and take care of liver in patients. Maybe that's your specialty. Maybe you want to do cardiac anesthesia. That's always an opportunity. Maybe you just want to be in a general OR and just do cases. Maybe you want to do a pediatrics facility. Maybe you want to be in a trauma facility. It is endless, the opportunities. And honestly, over the years, it has been growing and booming. So you gotta think about this too. In general, with anesthesia, with CRNAs more specifically, there's a growing need and a growing population, right? But at the same time, we're still putting out approximately about the same amount of CRNAs every year. So the industry in anesthesia is growing, but we don't have as many anesthesia providers to basically compensate for that growth. So the other thing to think about too is that you're needed, you're wanted, and you're very cost effective being a CRNA. So it's very nice to basically know that when you go into nursing, if you go into anesthesia, you can be a CRNA, maybe you want to become a nurse practitioner. Opportunities are endless and there's so much possibilities for you. And if you're thinking about traveling, tons of jobs, tons of opportunities. So definitely keep that in your mind. If you're young, maybe you have you don't have much of a commitment, for example, or maybe you have a family, you just love traveling, definitely can make a really great salary, for example, being a travel CRNA. Now, what are the steps to become a travel CRNA? Well, I remember, for example, when at one point that I wanted to travel. I was like, I want to go to this state, I want to go to that state. Of course, things change. I found a facility where I'm currently working, and I'm super happy, and I'm just not going anywhere. But if you are thinking of traveling, I went through all the legwork of what you have to do. The nice thing about being a travel CRNA, I recommend if you are deciding to do it, definitely go through a company because they will definitely do all the legwork for you, and it's also a lot of benefits if you go through a company. However, everyone's different, and maybe, for example, you know someone and you know about this facility. You don't have to do that, but there's a lot of benefits to working through a company. So, as well as they can actually basically go through the contracts and all the extra information that maybe you don't know about, for example. Maybe it's your first time doing it, and you don't want to make the mistake of not having, the understanding of the terminology with the contract, because everything's contract-based. So definitely take that in consideration. Now, the nice thing is that with being a travel CRNA, you're going to have to develop something called your 1099, your independent contractor. You're not a W-2 employee. Now, you're changing over to this other type of setting where maybe you'll have a business, for example, and I give you an example. Your business will be Thrive CRNA, and that'll be your business name. And then you either decide if you want to be an LLC, an S corp, or maybe a sole proprietor. It all depends on you, on what you decide and how you want to basically do your business through. Very important to think about this too. You're going to have an accountant that manages your taxes, making sure you're paying your quarterly taxes, as well as you're basically doing all this type of legwork with the IRS. Because now, being a 1099 or a travel CRNA, you're going to do your taxes all on your own. You're going to get your, for example, say for example, you work at a facility, you're doing a 3-month contract, or maybe you're doing a 12-month contract, depending on what you want to do, and you are doing it. You're going to get an hourly payment. It could be one. We'll go into more details in regards to how much money you're making per hour, but you're going to get a certain hourly rate. You're going to get an 8-hour guarantee. So say, for example, you work 7 hours, but you're still going to get that 8 hours because you're guaranteed to be there for that 8 hours. And then you go ahead and you get that amount of money through your business, and then you got to pay your taxes on your own. So it's very important for you to talk to an accountant, because I can't give you that information. Accountant really knows more details in regards to the specific state, specific region. There's a lot of differences in legislation and those type of things. So definitely have an accountant that you can trust and can do that for you. The nice thing about being a travel CRNA is that you are basically autonomous in regards to where you want to work, how much you want to get paid, you do your own health insurance, you take care of all your benefits. Of course, that can be overwhelming, especially if it's your first year doing it, but over time it gets easier and it gets more manageable. Okay? A benefit of being a travel CRNA, there's something called business expenses, where you get to write off, so you don't have to pay for taxes on it. So we'll definitely talk about that a little bit more later in the video, but let's get right into the salary, because you want to know the salary. You don't want to wait anymore. So I'm just going to go through this is 2020, and of course a lot of variation. So for what I've done my research, I've seen it can be $120 an hour versus $150 an hour, in between that range. That's like the average, okay? Now, depending on the state, depending on the region, you can get lower than 120, or you can get higher than 150. That's just, it's always varying, because depending on the facility, you may need someone really bad and no one's doing it, so they're willing to pay more money. Versus an area, for example, that is like hip, more people want to live there, it's more of a busier area, and they have a lot of options, they may not pay you as much. I'll give you an example. Florida, you may not get paid as high, you may get paid more 110. Much lower, versus maybe California, maybe get paid 150 or maybe one higher than that. So it all depends on the specific area, specific region. Also depends on the specific company you go through. That might vary on how much you're going to allow for expansion and how much you can get paid. Now, so when you think about 120, what does that mean? What does that mean? Or 150, what does that mean? So for example, you get 120 an hour, you do 8 hours a day, for example, 5 days a week. That comes out to $4,800 per week. Now, if you do 150, with an 8 hour, $150 an hour, 8 hours, you can get up to $6,000. It could be lower or higher, depending on, of course, the state or region. Now, when you think about that, what does that mean? So, say for example, you work 52 weeks a year. Okay, you want to hustle and bustle, make that money. You can make the amount of money, which is $249,600 a year, or it's upwards of $312,000 a year. It can be higher, of course it can be lower depending on your contract. So if you really work all those hours, and you work every single week, some people do it, some people don't do it. You can make a lot of money. But say for example, you're a person, you want to take vacation when you want. You don't want to be told when you take vacation. The nice thing about being a travel CRNA, you decide on when you do your contract, you decide when you want to do vacation, but you got to remind yourself, if you do your own vacation, you remember you're not going to get paid for that because you are doing a contract. So when you don't do a contract, you got to make sure you know that you're not going to get paid. So it all depends on you and how you decide on how you want to do your vacation, but you get the flexibility to do it all on your own and decide upon that. So you might be thinking to yourself, man, this is great, making all this money. But yes, at the end of the day, you can make that money. But you gotta remember, it all depends on the culture. It all depends on the specific area. You may get a lot more money if you go into more a rural area or an area that's not as, like people don't wanna live there, versus an area where it's like an urban area, it's a very hip place, a lot of people wanna live there and be there, you may not get paid as much. So you just gotta remember that. Now, say for example, you go to a facility and you love it, you're like, oh yes, this is it. That can happen. Or you may go to a facility where it's like, you're like, oh, I can't do this, I'm not happy. But you gotta finish your contract because there's a lot of, your contract has a lot of stipulations against if you leave your contract early. Of course you can make a decision to do what you want. Sometimes you'll have a 30-day notice, for example, or maybe a 45-day notice that you say, I'm not really happy here, and yes, I'm maybe making a lot of money, but at the end of the day, this is not where I wanna be. So you can always do a notice and get out of the contract. But you gotta remember that you don't, yes, you may wanna make that money, but it may not be the happiest place, or you may do a contract, you may love the place. So you gotta take that into consideration. I mean, yes, you wanna make money, but also you wanna be happy. And you also wanna make sure you're taking care of yourself, and of course, taking care of your future. The nice thing about being a travel CRNA, you can go anywhere, and see everything, and do everything, and really experience a wide variety of anesthetic practices. But anesthesia is the same bare bones, Of course, there's always changing in technology, in equipment, but the nice thing is that your clinical experience, maybe depending on where you're working, you get to meet certain people who do things differently, and you kind of learn and grow from that. So it's just really nice when you think about being a travel CRNA. Now, yes, even being a travel CRNA, there are some benefits and perks that I need to let you know. It's bonus stuff that you need to know. So for example, say you do a contract. You can, the company that you're working through, they can pay for your living expenses. You can do a hotel, or you can do get a stipend to basically decide where you want to stay, maybe an Airbnb or a vacation place, for example, or a condo. You get to make that decision. It depends on the contract you have. So you can get a stipend, get money for wherever you want to go, or you do a hotel. It's all taken care of. Depending on the contract you have, they can pay for your license to be at a specific area, your credentialing fees, all the different type of things they can actually pay for. The company will reimburse you for that. Maybe you have to do maybe 45 days, and then they'll reimburse you. Sometimes they'll actually give you a bonus depending on how long you've been there. Now, if you do a renewal contract, you can kind of renegotiate your contract and maybe ask for more money. So it's definitely, you're in control, you get to make those decisions, which is nice, okay? Which is a great opportunity for that type of growth. But one of the most important things is wherever you go, you always have to remain professional. You always have to make sure you maintain, a great relationship wherever you work at. And definitely be willing to learn and grow and be flexible, because it's gonna be a lot of things. You're gonna be learning and growing, different people have to develop trust with you, that type of, environment. So definitely keep that into consideration. You gotta be flexible, you gotta be willing to try to, be resilient, and of course, willing to grow, and which is amazing, It's always a great thing that you're willing to do, is to grow and try new things, and see how things are done differently. As well as, if it's a specific area you wanna live, get your foot in the door, which is nice. Now let's get back into a little bit, this is another bonus thing that I just want to go over with you really quick. You're thinking about, yes, I'm making a certain amount of salary, making $300,000 a year. What you would do is give yourself a salary. So you give yourself a salary of $150, $140, whatever you want to decide on, depending on reasonable per the IRS. And then you get taxed on that amount. Then you have, for example, say you give yourself $150, that's going to be taxed. Then you have another $150. What do I do with that extra money? Now the nice thing is, you can, of course, use it for business expenses. Maybe you have an office in your house. You want to give yourself a rent, office expenses, supplies or fees. Maybe you're continuing education. Maybe you want to go on a conference. Everything for you and that conference is taking care of: the hotel, the food, the conference fee itself, business expense. Also, you gotta think about this too, maybe the mileage of your car when you're going to and from the facility. Maybe your cell phone, maybe part of your internet can be taken off. So these are a lot of things that can be taxed, like basically not gonna be taxed on it, because you're using it through your business. So there's a lot of things that are nice about it that you get to control. Even your health insurance is you don't have to pay taxes on, which is nice. So you kind of can come up, thinking about a W-2 versus a 1099, you can kind of be ahead of the game in regards to the amount of money you can make, and you're in control. So definitely I have a video on how W-2 versus 1099 and what are the differences between them. So definitely check that video in the link below. So definitely, if you have been a travel registered nurse, or maybe you are a travel CRNA, tell me a little bit about your experiences, and maybe if you're interested in being a travel CRNA, where do you want to travel to? Where do you want to see? Love to hear it in the comments below. So if you want to learn more about CRNAs and how to grow your CRNA career, definitely click one of these videos over here, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.